The arena was alive with sound, filled with voices of hundreds of alien species gathered to see something strange, something they considered a joke. In the center stood one human soldier, Captain Sarah Kane. The bright lights from above poured down on her, showing her small frame and tired face. She wore the uniform of her people, but compared to the armored giants around, she looked fragile, like a child lost in a world not meant for her. The aliens laughed, their voices mixing into one roar of mockery. Some hissed, some clicked their jaws, others shouted in languages full of contempt. Their message was the same: she was weak, and she would not survive. The announcer's voice echoed through the arena, deep and full of false pride. He introduced Sarah not as a warrior, but as an example of human foolishness. "This," he said, pointing his claw toward her, "is the Death World species that dares to call itself Predator. Look at her soft flesh, thin bones, no claws, no armor. A species born for prey, not for battle." The crowd erupted with laughter. Some pounded the ground with their limbs, others slapped each other's backs, amused at the sight of this small human standing in silence. Sarah kept her chin high, but her lips stayed closed. She did not return their insults. Her silence was sharper than any reply she could give. Sarah's eyes scanned the arena. High above, alien nobles watched from golden balconies, safe and proud, drinking glowing liquids while mocking her kind. On the lower levels, warriors from countless worlds sat in ranks, eager to see blood. The floor beneath Sarah was made of dark stone, old and scarred by battles fought here long before she arrived. She could see marks left by claws, deep cracks from heavy blows, and dark stains that told of creatures who had died in this place. She understood what was coming, and she felt the air grow heavier. The announcer raised his hand. "For ages we have tested our warriors against the strongest of beasts. But today, for the pleasure of the crowd, we place before you not a warrior but a prey animal. Watch and remember how fragile humans truly are." The crowd roared again, shaking the very walls. Sarah's heartbeat was steady. She did not look afraid, though inside she knew this was no simple trial. This was meant to break her, to shame humanity in the eyes of the galaxy. But she was a soldier. She had stood in war zones, had seen comrades fall, and had learned that fear was a weapon only if you allowed it to be. The gates at the far end of the arena began to open. A deep rumble shook the floor as the heavy doors dragged apart. The crowd went silent, waiting, their many eyes focused on the darkness inside. Then came the sound, a low growl, deep and thunderous, that rolled like a storm across the arena. The growl turned into a roar, one so powerful it vibrated in Sarah's chest. The creature stepped into the light, and gasps filled the stands. It was the predator of predators, a beast feared across systems, captured only for these brutal games. It towered over Sarah, its body covered in thick plates of armor like hide, its claws as long as swords, its teeth gleaming with saliva. Eyes glowing like fire locked onto her small frame. The aliens cheered, their laughter returning now with cruel joy. To them, it was already over. They imagined Sarah crushed in a single strike, torn apart in seconds. Bets were made, shouts exchanged. But not one voice spoke of her victory. No one believed she had a chance. Sarah did not move. She stood calm, watching the beast, reading its posture. Every twitch of muscle, every breath, every small step told her something. She remembered her training, the endless hours of drills, the survival missions on Earth's most dangerous grounds. Humanity was weak in body, yes, but not in mind. Her people had faced predators for millions of years, creatures faster, stronger, larger than them. They had not survived by strength, but by will and intelligence. This beast was terrifying, but Sarah felt no panic. Instead, she whispered to herself, words too soft for the aliens to hear. "Finally, something worth my training." The predator roared again and charged. The ground shook beneath its massive weight as it closed the distance with terrifying speed. The crowd screamed for blood. Sarah waited, her eyes locked on the beast, her body ready. At the last moment, when the claw came down, she rolled aside, the strike missing her by inches. Dust rose as the ground split open where she had been standing. Gasps filled the arena, not because she had struck the beast, but because she was still alive. The predator turned, confused that its first attack had failed. Sarah did not counterattack. She circled, watching. The crowd shouted insults now, angry at her refusal to fight. They wanted violence, not patience, but Sarah's mind was calm. She was learning. She saw how the beast favored its left side, how its claws struck wide instead of straight, how its eyes tracked in short, sharp movements. Every detail built a map in her mind. The announcer shouted, mocking her again. "Do you see? She runs, she hides. Humans do not fight, they scurry. Like insects." Laughter exploded once more. But Sarah's lips curved into a small smile. Let them laugh. Let them think she was prey. The longer they underestimated her, the more powerful her next move would be. Another charge. The beast lunged, its jaws snapping. At her, Sarah ducked, sliding beneath its massive chest, feeling the wind of its breath above her. She pulled a small object from her belt, a flare grenade, simple human technology, nothing advanced. She pressed the trigger and tossed it behind her. Light exploded, brighter than the sun, filling the predator's sensitive eyes. The creature howled, thrashing in pain. The crowd roared in surprise. The announcer's voice stumbled, losing his rhythm. This was not expected. The human had not only survived, she had made the predator stumble. Sarah did not press the attack. She stood, weapon ready, but she waited. The predator shook its head, confused, its glowing eyes blinking rapidly. When it turned back toward her, its movements were slower, more measured. It looked at her not with blind rage, but with something else. Curiosity. The aliens grew restless. Some shouted that she cheated, that she used forbidden tricks, but others stayed silent, watching with new attention. Sarah lowered her weapon, her eyes meeting the predator's. The crowd leaned forward. What was she doing? Why was she not striking? Why did she stand calm when a monster towered over her? The predator breathed heavily, then slowly, incredibly. It stopped. Its massive head lowered, just a fraction, but enough to make the entire arena fall silent. No beast had ever done such a thing. They killed, they fought, they never bowed. Yet before their eyes, the strongest predator hesitated. Its burning eyes locked on one small human soldier who did not flinch. Sarah held her ground. She did not move back. She did not raise her weapon again. She simply stood, calm and steady, showing the creature that she was not afraid. In her mind, she thought of Earth, of wolves circling hunters, of lions staring down humans holding only fire. Respect was not given freely, it was earned. And here, in this alien arena, she had earned something that no one else could. The announcer's voice was gone now. The crowd was silent. Only the sound of the predator's heavy breathing filled the air. Sarah whispered again, her voice steady. Respect is not given, it is earned. The silence broke into chaos. Aliens shouted, some in anger, some in fear, others in awe. Guards moved nervously, unsure whether to stop the fight or let it continue. The predator growled, but not at Sarah. Its growl turned toward the stands, toward the aliens who had laughed, as if defending the human beside it. The impossible had happened. The strongest predator in the galaxy had not killed the human. It had bowed to her presence. Sarah's lips curved again into the faintest of smiles. She had not come here to entertain. She had not come here to die. She had come to show them the truth about humanity. And in that moment, with the predator at her side and silence spreading across the arena, she knew the truth had just begun to echo through the galaxy. The crowd had never been so silent before. Thousands of eyes watched the human and the predator standing face to face. The air inside the arena was heavy with tension. The beast's breath came out in hot waves, its chest rising and falling like a storm waiting to break. Sarah Kane stood still, her weapon lowered, her expression calm. Her silence was louder than any alien's shout. It made the audience restless. They had expected screams, panic, or desperate begging. Instead, the human soldier gave them patience and cold confidence. That alone was enough to unsettle them. The predator tilted its massive head, confused. It was used to prey running in terror, warriors swinging wildly, or challengers roaring with false bravery. But the small human did none of that. She waited. She studied. The beast growled, shaking the air, and then it lunged forward once more. Its massive claws sliced through the dust, reaching for her fragile body. The crowd roared in excitement, ready to see her crushed. But Sarah moved at the last second, slipping to the side with a speed that seemed impossible for her size. The claw smashed into the ground where she had been, leaving cracks that spread like lightning. Sarah did not attack back. She moved lightly, circling, her boots leaving quick prints in the sand. She knew what the aliens did not. She knew that predators of such size always had patterns. No matter how fast, no matter how brutal, every beast moved with rhythm. And rhythm could be broken. She looked for the small details, the way its shoulders twisted before a strike, the seconds between its heavy breaths, the slight pause before its jaws snapped. To the crowd, it looked like she was running. To her, it was studying. Every moment was a piece of information. Every dodge another page in the story of the predator. The announcer tried to recover his voice. See how she flees. See how she runs like prey. The predator toys with her, and soon she will fall. But his tone carried less power now. Some aliens did not laugh. Some leaned forward, realizing she had lasted longer than anyone expected. The mighty beast that ended warriors in seconds was still chasing, still missing. The predator grew angrier. Its roars shook the walls, spittle flying from its jaws. It swung again, its claw rushing past Sarah's face as she ducked under. She felt the wind of its power, felt the ground quake under her knees, but she never lost focus. Each close call sharpened her thoughts, not her fear. She thought of Earth. She thought of humans facing tigers with sticks, wolves with stones, mammoths with fire. Her ancestors had been weak too, but they had survived by outthinking monsters like this. At last, she saw what she was waiting for. The predator dragged its right claw slightly slower than its left. The movement was tiny, but Sarah's trained eyes caught it. Its balance favored the left side. She smiled faintly. Weakness. Every creature, no matter how powerful, had one. She knew she had to wait for the right moment. The beast charged again, its jaws wide, its teeth dripping. Sarah rolled to the side, but this time she reached for her belt. In her hand appeared another flare grenade. A simple human tool, one the aliens had mocked when they searched her belongings. She pressed the trigger and threw it high. A sudden burst of blinding white light filled the arena. The predator shrieked, its glowing eyes overwhelmed. It stumbled, slamming its massive body against the walls. The crowd gasped. This was not the script they expected. They had wanted blood. Instead, the human had made their strongest predator falter. Dust and light swirled together. Sarah rose to her feet. She could attack now, drive her blade into its exposed chest, prove herself through death. But she didn't. She lowered her weapon again. The aliens shouted in rage. Some demanded the fight continue. Others screamed for her execution. But Sarah stood still, her eyes locked with the beast. She had no desire to kill it. She wanted something greater. The predator blinked, its vision clearing. It stared at her, breathing hard. Its mind was wild but not mindless. It understood survival. dominance, and respect. And what it saw in this small human was not fear, not prey, not weakness. It saw something that matched its own spirit. For a long moment, it did not move. The arena grew quiet again, waiting. Sarah's hand tightened on her weapon, but she did not raise it. Instead, she whispered softly, though no alien could hear her words, "I am not your enemy. I am your equal." The predator's ears twitched. Slowly, it lowered its massive head. The crowd gasped in disbelief. No predator had ever bowed. No predator had ever recognized a fighter in this way. But here, before their eyes, the impossible happened. The beast submitted, not out of fear, but out of recognition. The silence broke into chaos. The announcer shouted nonsense, trying to twist what had just happened. Guards rushed forward, afraid the spectacle would turn against them. The alien nobles on the balconies leaned forward, their golden cups trembling in their hands. They had wanted humiliation for the human, but now they felt something else as strange, cold fear. The predator shifted its body, placing itself slightly between Sarah and the guards. Its growl rumbled like thunder, warning them away. Sarah did not move. She only stood tall, letting the truth of the moment speak louder than any words. In her mind, she remembered the long history of her people. Humans had made predators kneel. Before, wolves became dogs, horses carried riders, elephants bent to command. The galaxy thought humanity was weak, but they did not understand. Weakness could tame strength. Courage could bend monsters. That was the human way. The guards hesitated, unsure if they should risk angering the beast. Some raised weapons, others lowered them, their eyes flicking nervously between Sarah and the predator. The announcer tried to shout again, but his voice cracked. The crowd, once loud and cruel, was now split. Some still demanded blood, others whispered with awe. The sight burned into their memories, the strongest predator of their world. Bowing to a human soldier. Sarah finally stepped closer to the beast. Her hand moved slowly, carefully, and she placed it against the thick hide of its head. The predator growled low, but did not resist. Instead, it let her touch linger, its breathing slowing as if calming in her presence. The crowd gasped again. To them, this was sorcery, impossible control, forbidden magic. But Sarah knew it was none of those. It was respect. Two predators from different worlds, recognizing each other across the gulf of fear and strength. The nobles shouted from above, demanding the fight be ended, demanding the beast be destroyed, demanding Sarah's death. But their voices sounded weak now. Their control of the arena had slipped. The truth had escaped into the open, and no command could push it back. The image was burned forever, the predator bowing, the human unbroken. Sarah's eyes lifted toward the balconies. She saw their fear. She saw their anger. And for the first time, she spoke loud enough for all to hear. "You mocked my people," she said, her voice steady, echoing across the stone. "You called us prey. You laughed at our weakness. But now your strongest predator knows the truth. Humans are not prey. We are survivors. We are hunters." Her words cut through the arena like a blade. The crowd erupted again, but this time it was not only laughter. Some shouted in denial, but others roared with excitement, cheering not for the beast, but for the human. Seeds of respect had been planted, and they would grow in ways the nobles could not control. The predator growled once more, standing firmly. At her side, Sarah lowered her hand and turned her back on the crowd. She had no fear that the beast would strike her. The truth had been decided. Respect had been earned, and even monsters understood that bond. The arena guards did not dare to move closer. The announcer had no words left, and the galaxy had just witnessed the beginning of a story they would never forget. Sarah Kane, the soldier they mocked, had faced their strongest predator and stood unbroken. And in that silence, in that impossible bow, She had changed the way the galaxy looked at her kind forever. The arena was filled with a silence so heavy that it felt like the air itself had turned to stone. Thousands of aliens sat frozen in their seats, their many eyes fixed on the impossible sight before them. The strongest predator in their galaxy, the beast that no warrior had ever tamed, stood before a small human soldier. Its chest heaved, its claws were still dripping with dust, its teeth glistened like blades. And yet, instead of ripping her apart, it lowered its massive head toward her. The bow was not deep, not graceful, but it was enough. It was a gesture no one had ever seen, a gesture that defied every law of their understanding. The predator had bowed to Captain Sarah Kane. Sarah did not move at first. Her boots were planted firmly in the cracked stone of the arena floor. She felt the beast's breath wash over her, hot and heavy, carrying the scent of raw power. Her heart beat steady, not frantic, as if her body understood what her mind already knew. This was no accident. The predator had made a choice. It had looked into her eyes, had seen no fear, no weakness, and it had decided. In that moment, predator and human stood not as enemies, but as equals. Gasps and whispers spread through the stands. Some aliens shouted in disbelief, their voices cracking as they tried to deny what they had seen. Others simply stared in silence, too shocked to speak. The announcer, who only moments ago mocked Sarah as prey, stumbled over his words. His booming voice suddenly weak. It cannot be. This is trickery. Some kind of forbidden device, some hidden control. But his voice held no weight. The truth was too clear. The predator had chosen to bow. No technology, no trick could force such a creature to act. Against its nature, the nobles on the golden balconies stood from their seats, their robes shimmering in the bright lights, their faces twisted with rage and fear. They had ordered this fight to humiliate the human, to prove to all species that Earth's children were fragile prey. Instead, their plan had backfired. What was meant to be a spectacle of mockery had turned into a legend that would echo through the galaxy. And they knew it. Sarah slowly raised her hand. The crowd leaned forward, unsure of what she would do. With steady calmness, she placed her palm against the thick hide of the predator's head. The beast growled low, but the growl was not a threat. It was deep, resonant, almost protective. It did not strike. It did not resist. Instead, it allowed her touch, as if recognizing her as more than a stranger. The audience gasped again. To them, it was madness. To Sarah, it was the natural result of respect. For generations, humans had lived on a world of predators. Lions, wolves, tigers, bears, creatures, stronger, faster, deadlier. But humans had survived, not by strength, but by spirit, by courage, by refusing to give in to fear. Sarah thought of the hunters of old, men and women who faced beasts with nothing but fire and stone. She thought of her ancestors who stood their ground when the night was full of eyes and shadows. Humanity had always bowed to nothing. And now in this alien arena, that truth was revealed for all to see. The announcer tried once more, shouting desperately, "Stop this madness, guards, end this now. Kill the beast, kill the human, restore order." But his command rang hollow. The guards stepped forward, their weapons raised, but hesitation filled their eyes. They had never seen the predator behave this way. Its massive head snapped toward them, its growl turning sharp, warning them back. The guards froze, their weapons shaking in their hands. For the first time, they were afraid not of the human, but of what she had awakened in the beast. The predator moved slightly, its body shifting so that it stood between Sarah and the guards. The gesture was unmistakable. It was not just bowing, it was protecting her. The crowd erupted into chaos. Some aliens screamed in terror, others shouted in rage, and still others stared in awe. The story was writing itself before their very eyes. A human soldier had made the strongest predator bow and guard her. This was history being carved into the stone of memory. Sarah finally spoke, her voice steady, calm, and carrying across the arena. Respect is not given, she said. It is earned. Her words echoed, simple and sharp, sinking into the ears of every creature present. Many did not understand the depth of human history, but they understood the meaning of those words. They had mocked her kind as prey, but prey could never stand unflinching before death. Prey could never make a predator bow. The nobles above shouted louder now, their fury spilling out. Kill her. End this farce. Destroy them both. But their voices no longer commanded the same power. The crowd was divided. For every voice calling for her death, another voice whispered with awe. For every alien demanding blood, another asked themselves the question they had never considered. What if humans are not prey? What if they are something more? Sarah kept her hand on the beast's head, feeling the rhythm of its breathing. She knew she could kill it now. She could drive her blade into its skull, and the galaxy would remember her as the human who struck down the predator. But she also knew that killing it would be meaningless. Anyone could destroy. What mattered was the bond. What mattered was the truth shown in restraint. By lowering her weapon, she had achieved what no warrior ever had. She had earned the respect of the monster. The guards backed away, uncertain. The announcer's words grew weaker and weaker. The nobles shouted with less confidence. The balance of power in the arena had shifted. Not by force, but by respect. The predator stood tall, but its head remained lowered. Sarah stood taller, not because of her body, but because of her spirit. The crowd could feel it. The galaxy would feel it. Slowly, Sarah stepped forward, and the beast followed her. Its massive claws dug into the stone, its steps shaking the ground. But it did not pass her. It walked with her. Together, they moved toward the center of the arena. The aliens watched in silence, too stunned to believe what they were seeing. The announcer's voice failed completely. He could only watch as the human and predator stood side by side. Symbols of a truth greater than any lie he could tell. Sarah raised her eyes to the balconies. She met the gazes of the nobles, unflinching. You wanted to prove humans are weak, she said. But your beast has spoken louder than your voices. It does not bow to weakness. It bows to strength, and now it bows to me. Her words cut deep, carrying across the arena like fire spreading through dry grass. The nobles clenched their fists, furious but powerless. They had lost control of the narrative. The galaxy had witnessed something they could never erase. The crowd began to murmur, the whispers growing louder. Stories were already forming in their minds. They would tell others of what they had seen, and those others would tell more. Soon, across systems and planets, the tale would spread. The predator had bowed to a human. And once his story spread, no power could stop it. The predator growled again, but this time it was not a sound of rage. It was a sound of loyalty, of warning to anyone who dared to threaten the human it had chosen. Sarah lowered her hand, but the bond was unbroken. She turned her back on the nobles, on the announcer, on the guards. She had no need to fight anymore. The truth had already been written. The arena that once mocked her now sat in stunned silence. The laughter was gone. The insults were gone. All that remained was the memory of what had happened. Sarah Kane, the soldier they had called weak, had done the impossible. She had faced the strongest predator in the galaxy, and instead of being devoured, she had earned its respect. The impossible moment had become reality. And reality would change everything. As Sarah stood with the beast beside her, she knew this was only the beginning. The nobles would try to erase the story. The announcer would try to twist it. The guards would try to silence it. But it was too late. The galaxy had seen. The galaxy would remember. And humanity would never again be mocked as prey. The impossible had happened. And once the impossible happens, nothing is ever the same again. The arena that had been filled with laughter and mockery now shook with confusion and fear. Thousands of alien eyes were locked on the sight before them, a sight none of them had believed possible. Their strongest predator, the beast that had devoured warriors and crushed champions, now stood like a silent guardian beside a single human soldier. The same human they had mocked as weak and fragile. The same human they thought would be torn apart in seconds. Instead, the predator's massive head had bowed to her, and its body stood ready to strike not at her, but at anyone who dared come near. The nobles on the golden balconies were the first to react. They stood from their seats in fury, their jeweled robes glittering under the arena lights. Their voices rose in anger, booming across the crowd. This is deception. This is trickery. The beast has been tampered with. Their words were desperate, heavy with panic. They could not allow this moment to take root. If the galaxy believed a human had earned the respect of their greatest predator, then everything they had built, their pride, their dominance, their control, would begin to crack. But the crowd was not so easily convinced. Many had seen the fight with their own eyes. They had seen the predator charge again and again, its claws carving deep scars into the stone. They had seen the human dodge, study, survive, and outthink the monster. And they had seen the flare of light that blinded it, not a hidden device. Not forbidden sorcery, but a simple tool wielded with perfect timing. There was no trick, it was real. The human had faced the predator and earned its respect. Sarah stood tall in the middle of the arena, the dust still rising around her boots. Her hand rested calmly at her side, her weapon lowered, her breathing steady. She showed no fear, no weakness. She looked toward the nobles, her eyes sharp and unflinching. Their fury washed over her like a weak tide. She did not answer them with words, not yet. She let the silence speak for her. The silence of thousands of aliens trying to understand what they had just witnessed. The announcer, who had once mocked her with every word, now struggled to speak. His booming voice cracked with uncertainty. "Guards, guards, restrain the beast, restrain the human. This display must end." His words fell flat. The guards stepped forward, their weapons raised, but the predator moved instantly. Its head snapped toward them, its massive body lowering, its growl rolling like thunder. The sound was enough to freeze them in place. They had seen this beast slaughter entire squads. None dared to be the first to move against it now, not while it stood protectively over the human. The nobles shouted again, demanding action. But their voices no longer carried the same power. The crowd was not laughing anymore. Many sat in stunned silence, their minds turning, their beliefs shaking. Others whispered to each other, their words spreading like sparks. If a human can make the predator bow, what else can they do? If humans are not prey, what are they? The questions grew in the silence, louder than the noble's fury. Sarah finally lifted her voice, clear and calm, cutting through the chaos like a blade. "You mocked us," she said, her tone steady. "You called us prey. You laughed at our weakness. But this predator does not laugh. This predator does not mock. It has seen what you could not. It has seen that we are not prey." Her words echoed through the arena, reaching even the highest balconies. The crowd shifted uneasily. Some shouted in anger, but others listened. With wide eyes, unable to deny the truth they had witnessed, the predator growled again, louder this time, its glowing eyes fixed on the nobles above. It was as if it too understood the meaning of her words. It had fought her, tested her, and chosen her. To the alien audience, this was no accident. This was a judgment. Their beast, their ultimate symbol of strength, had given its respect to a human. The weight of that truth pressed on them like a storm. The nobles barked orders, demanding the beast be destroyed. But the guards still hesitated. Fear clutched their hearts. They knew that to attack now was to die. And somewhere deep inside, they also knew the truth. They had laughed at the human once, but they could not laugh anymore. What they had seen could not be undone. Sarah placed her hand on the predator's head once more, steady and fearless. The beast let out a low rumble, not of anger but of loyalty. Together, they stood in the center of the arena, unbroken, untouchable. The crowd looked on, their fear slowly shifting into something else. Something they had not expected to feel. Toward a human respect. Whispers turned into murmurs, murmurs into voices. Some aliens began to cheer, uncertain at first, then louder. The sound spread, clashing against the nobles' angry cries. The arena was split in two, half screaming for her death, half roaring in awe of her strength. The balance of power was shifting before their eyes. Sarah looked once more to the balconies. Her voice rang out again, calm but firm. We do not seek your pity. We do not need your chains. We do not need to prove ourselves with cruelty. We are human. We survive because we face what others fear. We endure because we do not run. And today, your predator has shown you the truth you tried to hide. Her words hit the crowd like a storm. The nobles' faces twisted in rage, but they could see it slipping away from them. No speech, no command, no punishment could erase what had just happened. The predator had bowed. The crowd had seen. The galaxy would hear. Their control was already breaking. The announcer tried one final time, his voice shaking. This is a trick. A human cannot command the beast. It is impossible. But even as he spoke, the predator's glowing eyes turned toward him, and it let out a roar so powerful the arena walls trembled. The announcer fell silent at once, his face pale, his body shaking. The crowd laughed this time, but not at Sarah. They laughed at his fear. The nobles gave frantic signals, calling for reinforcements, but the damage was done. The image was burned into the minds of every alien present. Sarah Kane, the fragile human soldier, had stood before death without fear. She had faced their greatest predator and had not only survived, but earned its respect. It was not weakness that defined her. It was something far greater. And that truth could not be silenced. Sarah lowered her hand and turned her gaze across the sea of faces. She saw fear, yes, but also something else shining in their eyes. Wonder, curiosity, respect, the beginning of a change. The predator stepped closer, its massive body looming over her but shielding her at the same time. Together they stood, a symbol of something the galaxy had never seen before. A human and a predator, not enemies, but allies. The arena was no longer a place of mockery. It had become a place of revelation. The fear that once filled the crowd was turning, slowly but surely, into respect. The nobles could not stop it. The announcer could not twist it. The guards could not erase it. The truth had been shown, and the galaxy would carry it forward. Sarah Kane had not only survived the trial, she had changed it. And the aliens who had once mocked her now sat in silence, their laughter gone, their pride wounded. For the first time, they looked at a human and saw not prey, but something far more dangerous. They saw a predator of their own. The arena had fallen into a stillness that was almost sacred. Thousands of eyes were fixed on Sarah Kane, the human soldier who had stood unbroken before the galaxy's greatest predator. The predator itself now stood beside her, its massive frame a silent guardian. Its glowing eyes scanned the crowd, warning anyone who dared approach her. It was a sight that no alien in the arena had ever seen before, a symbol of power, respect, and something they could not fully comprehend. The nobles on the balconies were the first to try to regain control. Their voices rang out, sharp with fury and authority. End this immediately. Remove the human. Destroy the beast. But their commands were meaningless. The guards moved forward, weapons raised, but the predator growled, a low, resonant sound that shook the very floor. No one dared step closer. Fear, real and raw, filled the air. The nobles could only watch as their control slipped away. What They had planned as humiliation had become something else entirely. Sarah stood tall, her chest rising and falling steadily. She did not shout. She did not attack. She simply looked around the arena, seeing the stunned expressions on alien faces. They had expected fear, weakness, and chaos. They had found none. Instead, they saw a human who had survived, who had studied, who had earned the respect of the predator that had been their symbol of power. The whisper started slowly, then spread. The human, she is not weak. She is... Words faltered, no one could finish. The idea was too alien, too impossible to accept fully. And yet, it was true. The predator shifted slightly, placing itself firmly between Sarah and anyone who might threaten her. Its claws dug into the stone, its massive tail curling slightly, a protective motion. The crowd could feel the tension. For the first time, they realized the predator had chosen her. It would follow her commands, guard her, and refuse to strike unless she allowed it. This small human had achieved what no alien warrior ever had. Loyalty from a creature of pure strength and instinct. Sarah's eyes swept across the arena. She did not need to speak to the nobles, though they were yelling now, their faces red with anger. She did not need to act, though the crowd was still restless. Her calm, unwavering stance spoke louder than words. Humans, she knew, were underestimated. Not because they were weak, but because no one had truly seen what they could endure, what they could outthink, and what they could command through courage alone. The murmurs in the crowd grew louder, spreading like fire. Aliens who had mocked her now whispered to each other in disbelief. The strongest predator of their world had bowed, and no one could deny it. Those who had cheered for her death now cheered her survival. Those who had laughed at humanity's weakness now whispered questions about their strength. The arena had changed. The story had changed. The galaxy would remember this day. Sarah finally spoke, her voice steady and strong, carrying across the arena. You thought humans were fragile. You thought we could not survive. You thought we were prey. Today, your predator has shown you the truth. Respect is earned, not given. Strength is not only in muscle, but in will. We survive because we endure. We thrive because we do not yield. And now, even your strongest predator knows what we have known all along. Her words echoed, clear and firm. The predators in the crowd stirred, some recognizing the truth in her voice. The alien warriors who had once laughed now bowed their heads slightly, not in submission, but in acknowledgement. They had witnessed something beyond their comprehension. A human had changed the course of perception in their world. The nobles could do nothing. Their shouts fell flat. Their anger was powerless against the reality in front of them. The predator growled once more, a low warning to anyone who might try to challenge her. It was loyal, fearless, and unstoppable. Sarah's presence had transformed it from a creature of death into a guardian, a symbol of the potential humans could command. The arena had become a testament not to fear, but to the power of courage and respect. The whispers spread beyond the arena, carried by those who had witnessed the spectacle. Messages traveled across galaxies, from system to system, telling the tale of the human who had stood unbroken, the human who had earned the respect of the strongest predator. Stories would form, legends would be told, and the whispers would grow louder with each telling. Humanity, once mocked as weak, now became a subject of fear, respect, and curiosity. The predator's bow had changed everything. Sarah took a step forward, her eyes scanning the audience. She could see fear, yes, but also admiration, understanding, and the beginnings of respect. The crowd, once mocking, now watched her in awe. The predator shifted its massive head toward her, as if acknowledging her presence. It was a bond built on mutual understanding, on endurance, and on the courage to face what others could not. Sarah had earned this. She had not taken it by force. She had earned it through patience, observation, and unshakable will. The nobles finally fell silent, realizing that no command, no threat, no attempt at domination could undo what had occurred. The Predator's loyalty was absolute, and the human soldier's courage had made her untouchable in that moment. The arena had shifted from a place of mockery to a place of revelation. The galaxy had witnessed something extraordinary, something that would not be forgotten. Sarah's thoughts turned to her people. Earth, her home, where humans had survived countless dangers, predators, and disasters. Where strength had always been measured not just in power, but in cunning, endurance, and unity. Today, she had demonstrated that spirit to the galaxy. She had shown that humans could face any creature, any challenge, and not only survive, but earn respect in ways others could not imagine. And that was a legacy that would last. The Predator nudged her lightly with its massive head, a silent acknowledgement of trust. She smiled faintly. This was more than victory. It was proof that humans were not what others assumed. Proof that courage, intelligence, and will could surpass raw strength. And proof that respect, once earned, could turn even the deadliest foe into a protector. The audience began to stir, slowly, then louder. Some cheered, some whispered, some stood in disbelief. The galaxy had witnessed a moment that would be remembered for generations. A human soldier standing unbroken, respected by the Predator that no alien had ever tamed. Stories of her courage would travel across worlds, and soon, myths and legends would form around the simple, undeniable truth. Humanity was not weak. Sarah stepped forward, leaving behind the space where she had fought, leaving the Predator at her side. She had earned her place, and with it, the respect of a galaxy that had once mocked her species. The nobles remained, powerless and silent, their pride wounded. The guards, too, remained still, uncertain how to act against what they had witnessed. The arena itself seemed to recognize the change, its walls echoing with whispers that would grow into legends. Out in the distance, beyond the arena, across planets and star systems, the story spread. Beings who had never considered humans as anything more than prey now paused, questioning, reconsidering. The Predator had bowed, and through that gesture, the galaxy began to understand. Humans were survivors, hunters, warriors, and above all, creatures who could face the impossible and emerge with respect earned, loyalty gained, and legends made. Sarah Kane, the soldier who had once been mocked, had transformed fear into respect. The Predator at her side, the aliens in awe, the galaxy watching. Nothing would ever be the same again. Humanity's legacy had begun anew, and the galaxy would remember the day when the impossible became reality.